Hey everyone, welcome to Sundays with Steadyworth, where we talk about how to use your money to design a life that you're actually excited about. Tonight's topic is how to turn your passion into income. So we're super excited about that. I'm Laura, a life and leadership coach. This is my amazing husband and better half, Gabriel Walters, who is a CFP, the money nerd.
Yes, we're about to hop into it. This is a topic that we're really excited about, considering we've done this. We've started a business and we've turned a passion into income. And so, yeah, we're super excited just to hop right on in. So just thanks for joining us with Sundays at Steadyworth. Today's July 27th. It is 5:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to hop right in.
We are here an hour earlier today because we have some other things going on this evening. And so we are hoping to not throw too much of a wrench in the normal scheduling, but we'll be back with you next week, same time, same place.
Yes.
And so today I want to just start us off. When did you realize that you had a passion for something outside of your 9 to 5?
I mean, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I think that is something that runs through with a lot of people when we come to this topic. It's like, how am I going to turn my passion into an income? I think the most important thing is getting clear on what it is that you want to do. I mean, I know that you specifically remember this because we were just friends at the time and starting to date. A friend of ours, we were in we're in like this thing called a 90-day push where we were like praying through some things. And
100 days.
I had a couple different ideas of what I wanted to do, but I had to figure out which one was the one that I wanted to focus on. And a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody about what it is that they want to do to turn their passion into an income, I'm like, I forget where I got this concept from. I read it in a book or something, but it was like, where do which one of these ideas is really in your genius zone? So I had one idea to start a company in finance. I worked in finance. I'm already a CFP. Had another idea to like kind of do something on Instagram, which is kind of like this thing about making jokes about vests or whatever, because I saw this other page that I liked, and I had another idea about something else that I kind of forgot. I had them all written down, but I was like, which one makes the most sense? Which one am I the most passionate about? Which one, keeps me up at night and gets me up in the morning? And so, and I kept coming back to finance because finance is something that's always interested me throughout, my entire life. And so I think I'm going to be, it's just even some of those prompts is some of the stuff that we're going to be touching on as we go through the course of this conversation over the next hour is like, what are the things that you are really most passionate about? But I think it's good to have a couple different ideas and then you hone down into, what that thing is, because a lot of times what I find is the first idea we start off with ends up not being the main thing. We end up kind of massaging it into making it the thing we wanted. And even with that, I mean, when I was looking to start what would eventually become Steadyworth, I wanted to just start a finance company that was a lot like the one I already worked at, where we managed money and we gave financial advice and, we built financial plans. But then as I started working on the education piece, of like, maybe I'll offer educational classes and this is how we'll get new clients. And then I was like, you know what? I like the education piece more. I am a teacher. I want to be able to teach people.
And I remember at one point you've said this to me multiple times, like, in terms of like how to identify something that is in your genius zone is if someone were to wake you up in the middle of the night, what could you wake up with? No problems, no complaints, help that person and then go back to sleep and feel excited.
Well, that same Wednesday night group that we met at Shiloh Church in Oakland, there was a guy who came and spoke at that group, and Michael Moore. And Reverend Michael Moore, and that's what he said. He talked about the different callings we have as Christians. He's like, one of your callings, is you have your spiritual calling, but then he talked about your actual vocational calling. And when he talked about that, he was like, what is that passion that if somebody, like you said, wakes you up at 2 a.m, you could wake up with no problem, do it from 2 to 3 and be back to sleep at 3 o'clock. He goes, for some of you guys, it could be shooting a basketball. Some of you guys could be cooking a meal, cutting hair. For me, it's teaching somebody about how to build a financial plan. Like it's nothing because, but that's the thing that I actually love.
And that was something that really stuck in my head because working from 9 to 5, corporate America, corporate consultant, I felt like I was like, I can't think of very many things I'd like to be woken up in the middle of the
Right.
night that I
But let me
currently
be clear.
do.
The older I get, I don't want to be woken up
Yeah.
in the middle of the night anymore. But yes.
Totally, but, that question really, really made me think when you said that because I hadn't heard that before, and so, that kind of kicked off a couple year reflection for me personally of like, because I've always loved my sleep. Like even in my 20s, like we've had this conversation, even in my 20s, I'm like, I need my sleep. I need my beauty rest. Like, what would I be okay with if someone called me and woke me up?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I was gonna say not to cut you off, but like
yeah.
and to that point, I remember there was one point where I was still like, working a job and I was working at my job, but I was working on getting clear on this idea and I needed to talk to somebody who I was gonna hire to do some stuff for me, once I quit my job. And the only time that worked for us to talk about this particular thing was at 6 a.m. my time because they were on the East Coast. And so I was up at 5 something in the morning, you know, doing what I needed to do. And we were hop on the call at 6 and I'm, hey, going at it. And I'm like, when you are, when you feel good to talking
Yeah.
about somebody about your project at 6 a.m. because that's the best time of the day that works for you and you're clear and it's good to go, then, that's also an indicator, I would say.
Yeah, and I think what we're highlighting right now is how to even identify something that you're passionate about, right? Because I think some people are like, yeah, I really want to start a business. That was something that I always wanted to do, but I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Um and so and some people are really clear about what their passion is, right? Like yours took a few steps. It was like, okay, I want to start my own business. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually really passionate about teaching and educating. So I think, there's two parts to this, right? What is your passion and how can you turn that into, what is your passion, one? And then two, how can you turn that into an income or something that's going to bring in money? And I know that this is kind of the sweet spot. And I think some people also, and we may talk about this a little bit later, don't even know what they're like. They don't even aren't even really aware about what their passion is and that they're actually really good at it. They're so good at it that they're like unaware that other people aren't as good at it as they are, if that makes sense. Like I've
Yeah.
often heard like,
I feel like this is something that you struggled with for a while because you're like, I just don't want to be the one making decks and this. Now I want to do something else. And then it was like, oh, actually, I'm good at this. I do enjoy doing it.
yeah, and I think that it's twofold there though too is, now I'm on this journey of becoming a life coach and a leadership coach and not realize like I'm going through the formal education now and I'm not realizing how frequently in my everyday life, friends, family, colleagues, leaders that I've done this over the course of the last 10 years and just had no idea that that's what I was doing.
Right.
Right? Had no idea I was like acting as a coach for somebody. It was just like how I wanted to be talked to and given advice and helped. And so that I had curated that skill over time. And I had no idea that it was a skill that you could charge for and that people would pay for. Right. And so
Absolutely.
I think that happens too when you're trying to assess what you're passionate about or even what you're really good at is sometimes either you're naturally talented in it or you love it so much and you feel like everyone can do it when really that's not true. Like you have a special set of skills. And so even talking to friends and family, like what is something that I'm really good at? Like what are some skills that I have, and use that as a sounding board to really kind of identify that.
Sure. Definitely.
So we're on a little bit of a tangent here, but why do you think so many people feel stuck or hesitant to monetize their passion?
Um, I think also is probably like, maybe just taking a chance. I think that there's so many people who it's like, okay, this is a passion and this is fun for me. But if all of a sudden I try to turn this into a business, now I'm trying to sell something that my heart is connected to. And then maybe, and if I can't sell it or if it doesn't sell initially, maybe I'm going to be rejected or maybe people are going to judge me or maybe people are going to think this or that. I think, a lot of the times when, the thing that holds us back is really just our thoughts about, how we might be perceived by others, family members, or just whatever. I've heard of people starting YouTube channels and they're like, yeah, I started a channel. I didn't tell anybody in my family, or I didn't tell any of my friends. I used a different name so I couldn't easily be searched, so I think a lot of it is just, thoughts that come into people's head. And it's like,
Yeah, like fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being, I don't know, coming against some sort of resistance or having people that they love not like or support what they're doing.
right.
I think it's even harder to go out on a limb or to pursue your passion and turn it into income when you are really passionate about it, because like you said, your heart is in it. So it's not just like, and that's a big difference that I'm noticing just in the work we're doing with Steadyworth. It's very hard for me to be like, when things don't work or we don't get the outcome that we're looking for me to be like, oh, well, I don't really care that much, so it doesn't matter. Or, this
Right.
person was in the way, so of course it didn't work. It's like, no, I'm the person, we're the people in charge.
Right.
And I do actually care about how this works. So it is frustrating to me that we're not getting the outcome that we hope for, and I think that, we say this all the time, but I do feel like when you really pursue a journey like this, it is the most personal transformation, the biggest growth that you can go through, because you're putting your whole self on the line when you
That's right.
try and turn a passion into income.
Yeah. And I think, we're, I don't know if this is in one of the questions tonight, but if it's not, I just want to say this right now, is that when you're turning a passion into income, one of the best things you can do is to get a coach that can help coach you, because it's just like, when you're inside of that thing, especially when it's something that so much about, it's great to have somebody else from the outside helping, guide you and help walk you through different decisions that you're making, because when you're just inside of it by yourself, it can be so one dimensional.
Yeah.
Whereas, when you're running a business, it's a very dynamic thing, is multifaceted, especially when you're connecting an idea, a thought, a project to what other people want to do. It makes me think of, I think it was like Steve Jobs. They were talking about when he first came out with the first Apple computer, and he took out Apple took out like this big, like huge 1-page ad in, I think it was like the New York Times or something. Forgive me if I'm butchering the story and somebody else watching knows it better than me. But, and he talked about like all of the technicalness of the computer. He talked computer nerd talk and nobody cared. And then all of a sudden, then he went a while later, he was like, okay, this isn't working. And I don't know where marketing got the idea from,
Yeah.
but then they were able to actually break it down in a way that, hey, we're trying to make things more simple and, and easy to use for, making computing like, for the everyday person. And then all of a sudden it got picked up. And when you think about like, even like the normal, back in the day, back when they had the iPod and that little iPod commercials, and it was like it showed the person in the car with the iPod, then going to work, then in the elevator with the iPod listening to music, then at their desk listening to music. It's like, you need people who are outside of it that can make it simple, help you make it simple for other people. Because when you're deep into it, especially if it's not something as simple as a service-based business, like, doing a lawn, doing taxes, cutting hair, but it's something that's not as simple as that. You're selling an idea, and sometimes you need a coach to help you break that idea down.
Yeah. And I was just even like third party people, when you're going after like building a business or turning a passion into income, it's really easy to get inside of your own head as well. Like, should I do this? Should I do that? What path should I take? And then also kind of confronting your own limiting beliefs at the same time, or your own belief systems, and having someone from the outside of perspective even help you untangle that. Like, and I think there's a difference between like an expertise coach where someone can help you like from the marketing perspective, which we have now, which is amazing. And we love our guy so much because he's just like on it and understands how to translate our story. But also like, it is such a personal growth journey. You do confront a lot of your stuff
Definitely.
and a lot of your
Absolutely.
beliefs and a lot of the things that you thought you knew that you didn't know. And even having a coach just help you navigate around some of those obstacles, redefine what success looks like, help you continue to persist. we've both found super helpful. And we find that helpful with our clients as well, because money surprisingly comes with a lot of mental and emotional blockers or barriers that prevent people from taking pretty clear action when it comes to the numbers and the finance piece of it.
Absolutely. 1000%.
Yeah, and so I think it's the same in business. And so if and we sort of touched on this a little bit, but how do you know if something is a passion or just a hobby?
I think a couple things would be is like, does it keep you up, and does it keep you up late at night? Does it wake you up early in the morning? Do you want to get better at it? You know, um, different thoughts like that. I mean, I feel like, are you constantly trying to learn more? I mean, I think about hobbies I have, like golf, and forgive me for those of you guys who are watching who are super into it. And there are seasons that I'm more into it and seasons that I'm not, and
Watching
so,
golf, you mean?
no,
Or
playing.
playing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's seasons where I'm like, like where I'm like, oh my gosh, every YouTube video I'm watching, I'm trying to learn something new, walking around. I used to have times where I'd be walking. I was reading this one book. It was the Ben Hogan book, and he was like, keep your club in your hand at all times. So it's like, I'm walking around the house with my golf club in my hand. So it's like, I'm cooking eggs one hand, golf club in the other hand. Just getting the grip
Putting
down.
with
Just
okay.
making it another part of my body. But that's a hobby. It's like things came up and then I'm like, okay, I don't have as much time for that. Whereas I feel like something that you're passionate about is something that you're constantly drawn to. And so it can be a thin line. And I think it's really important to understand, what are the things that, when you're trying to monetize something, it's like, am I trying to monetize a passion or a hobby? Because I think that's something also that people get confused with. And then they start trying to monetize a hobby. And then it's like, for instance, like one of my hobbies is also barbecuing. Like I'm not the best barbecuer, but I'm fairly decent
He's
on the
actually
grill.
really good.
Right. But it's like, but I don't have a passion for sitting down teaching people how to barbecue. I don't want to record videos and do that or go over recipes. I mean, if I do like a quick little like Instagram short or like a
Yeah.
IG like story or whatever, but I'm not that passionate about it. I mean, and now I have a boss, or one of my old colleagues who's a boss of mine. He has a barbecue comp team. And like, so when he is not working, I've gone to a couple competitions with him and done the competition with him. And I mean, it's a whole other level. And I mean, but it's like a next level passion. I mean, and there's money on the line when you're in these comps. And I mean, he's won some championships and I've been there with them doing it. And I'm like, this is intense. Like, it's not that level for me. It's
Yeah.
not. And so, but I just realized, hey, when it comes to that, I want to be, I just
Like,
want to be a backyard barbecuer.
yeah. And it's like, are you willing to spend your free time doing it?
Right.
That's like one of the things that I'm thinking about as you're talking is, he's working his day job 9 to 5. And in his free time, he is literally barbecuing
Right. And I mean,
and
and
going to
sometimes he's
comps.
taking off work to do it. Cause I mean, when he's in these comps, like, and I mean, this isn't like no little hobby. This is like, custom $18,000 pit that was made for him, has a, couple $100,000 Mercedes Sprinter, mobile home that pulls the pit. That so when they're going, they got the whole thing. And when you go to one of these comps, I mean, people like pulling out these huge RVs, pits, mobile
Yeah.
kitchens,
Like
I
it's a
mean, because it's money
lifestyle.
on the line. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I got my little PK grill, getting it in the back,
With
little
steaks and hamburgers.
iPhone radio. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's my extent of that.
Yeah. And so it's like understanding, I think a couple of things that we're saying here is obviously like what level of passion do you have for it, aka how much time are you willing to spend on it? And then on top of that, like does it interest you to do something related to that thing, right?
Yeah.
Um
Also, I think, talking to him one time, he had lost his brother a couple years. I mean, this was several years ago. I was having this conversation with him back in like 2020, shortly after I lost my dad. And he was saying that, I got into barbecuing and, I was already into it. I was already into it, but I noticed at one point that when I was working on when I was working on prepping for a comp, I was barbecuing, and it literally was healing to me at one point. Cause it was at one point when I was in the middle of the comp and I'm working through this stuff, I was able to go several hours without thinking about, the loss of my brother.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, so for him, it was something that literally took his mind off of work, grieving, everything that he was able to do. And, and so it was able to, as that was also helped with his passion. And so I would also ask is like, is the thing that you have, I feel like when you're in the middle of a passion, you literally lose track of time doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so do you have something where it's like, I get up in the morning and I work on it? Laura can tell you this because she will tell you, she's like, I'm not a finance person. I'm not as passionate, but this is what, long when we were getting Steadyworth started, we have a pre-recorded course that I needed to record for this. And I would get up and we were working on the video scripts, and this wasn't back, this chat GPT didn't exist back then. So I couldn't say, hey, what am I missing from this script? Can I put it in there? We wrote these video scripts from start to finish. And and I'd be like, and I am a perfectionist. So I'm like, yo, this one is good, but it's not right. This one's good. And we would spend hours working on these scripts, and
All weekend.
On weekends and at nights. And she would be like, yo, I'm ready to be done. But I'm like, we just got started. We just got
it's like we would start at like what, 10, 11 a.m. on a Saturday. And then it's like 5, 6 o'clock. We're outside going on a walk. I'm cross-eyed. I'm like, I can't. We did this like 3 or 4 weekends in a row, right? Looking back, I'm like, man, ChatGPT would have saved us so much time and energy. And this was leading up to our wedding. So it was fun.
And I also want to just say that too. This is a total sidebar about using ChatGPT in your business. It is good. It helps. But I just want to say, for those of you who, I know when you have a tool like that, the inputs are the outputs are only as good as the input. So it's like, you still need to work to be an expert level, and it can help you think about some things. But I would recommend you don't try to just start a business based off of just what you got off of ChatGPT. That could get you into trouble. Another thing is that, people pay experts, and you got to have that thing inside of you, because you won't always be able to be on the camera or look to the side or have ChatGPT in front of you. We were at church a couple of weeks ago, and there was a person speaking, and they said, they were talking about, getting the word of God in you. But he said, when you get around something, it gets on you, it gets in you, and then it comes out of you. And when you're trying to start a successful business, that's really what needs to happen. You need to get around what you're doing. It needs to get on you. It needs to get in you and come out of you. So if it's not coming out of you, people are going to know that you're not authentic about it, and it's not going to last long.
And you don't have expertise.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, people are paying you for some level of expertise.
1000%.
That you've built or you've developed over time. And so, one thing that I would say was maybe I still am passionate about this idea, but I played Division I soccer. I played semi-pro. I probably could have played pro if I wanted to. I just didn't. I was just not at that place mentally speaking. So like when I show up on a soccer field, like one of my side hustles back in the day was to coach soccer. And it wasn't just because I liked soccer. It was because I had a level of expertise associated with soccer. So when I showed up on the soccer field, I actually knew what I was talking about. Right. And so I think, it's one thing to be really passionate about an idea. And I think passion leads to expertise. But there is that fine line between building a business around your passion, but also being an expert in that thing. And, the other thing I want to mention is there's this book that I recommend to almost everyone that I work with, from a coaching perspective. It's right here. So my camera is going to dip down a little bit for a second, but this book right here, Love and Work, is like one of my favorite books. And in here, it talks about red threads, which is kind of what you're talking about. Like when you get into an activity or you're into a zone where you lose track of time, that would be considered a red thread, something that you're passionate about and something that you're gifted at, right? So like when I'm making a slide deck, I can actually lose track of time because I'm so in the zone of creating, building the storyline and doing all that stuff. But if this is something that's really interesting to you and you would like to turn, a passion of yours into, a job, into a job description, into a business, I highly recommend that book. It can just really help you understand like the unique gifts that you bring to the table. So if that's something that you're like, well, I don't really know what I'm good at, like me, it helped me a lot. There's some questions in there, and I can actually we can post that in the show
Yeah,
notes.
and I was gonna say, and while we're on the subject of book recommendations, one book that really I feel like helped me was it was called The $100 Startup.
Hmm.
And I read that book, and it was basically it's like talking about starting an idea with with $100 or less. And so and he had stories about different people who've done that. His name is Chris. I forget how to pronounce his last name.
Hmm.
Starts with a B. And I don't forget how to pronounce his last name. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And so, but that was a good one. And I think that, also, if you've heard me speak before about this, you already know I'm going to say Donald Miller, the original Story Brand book is really good because it talks about, positioning the product you offer as as like the guide for in your customers, the hero, and you're working to guide, the hero to whatever the thing is that they're trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, when you're starting a business, you are solving a problem for someone. Every
Yeah.
business solves some sort of problem for someone. And so, you want to figure out how to position the product that you offer as basically the solution for someone's problem. Because like we were saying earlier, some people get it. Like, I know that when I go to Valvoline, they're going to give me an oil change. Like they don't need to sell me on it. I get it. Like my car needs an oil change. I have a barber. He's going to cut my hair. I'll tell you guys a story some other time, but during COVID, when barbershops were closed down, I tried cutting my hair. I cut off one of my eyebrows. I know that's not in my genius zone. I got to go to a barber.
Yeah.
But there are other things where somebody might not get what it is you're doing. So, you want to be able to clearly articulate that how your product solves their problem.
And so what's the simplest way to test if someone will pay for someone's idea?
Man, that's a great one. And I think that, the simplest way to test for this, and this is putting yourself out there. So it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. I remember when I did it, but it's just like, I would say you want to start a test group. Maybe just run a small group, a challenge, something like that. And just say, hey, whatever, I can't tell you how much to charge because I don't know what your product is, but I'd say maybe just hit up a group of friends, family members, some people who you already have trust with, some people who that probably could benefit from what it is that you're doing, and say, hey, I'm putting together a group of 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. You're probably going to need to reach out to at least a good 50 people to get a solid 5 to 8 people, just because, people are busy doing whatever it is that they're doing too. And say, hey, I'm doing this, or I'm working on bringing this idea to life, or running this group, or charging X amount of dollars. It's going to be these days. I'd love for you to come join us. These are the results you're going to get, because people are, you want to make sure also when you're speaking to them, don't speak about what you're going to do. Speak about what they are going to get when this process is over, because that's what people want to know. They want to know, when I leave here, this problem is going to be fixed. So make sure you speak about that result. Have it be I would say, if it's your first time, probably start with a price that's a bit lower. I mean, not too low, but don't want to charge your platinum price that is already built out.
Yeah. Well, and I would probably even, like, looking back on what both you and I have done, like when you were running your test group for your financial planning framework that you built, that's kind of like the signature of everything that Steadyworth is. You ran that group for free.
Right.
Right.
I think one big difference though is that at the time when I was running that, and I was still working at a firm, and you can't have a job on the side doing
That's true.
finance. So
That's true.
when you work in finance, everything that you do to make money, you have to declare, tell them what you're doing. So it's like, so I had one job that I'd get paid where I would go proctor doing ACT testing, but I can't run a financial coaching business on the side and
Yeah.
charge. And
Well,
so, yeah, so for my test group that one test group that I did, we did it for free, but at that point this is not a business. This is just a hobby.
well, the great thing about, one of the great things that you did during that time though, was you tested your idea on people, on real
Mm-hmm.
people. You weren't necessarily 100% clear on the outcome of the outcomes people would get running through your financial planning framework and filling it out and getting clear on their finances. And you got their feedback from running the test group. And
Right.
then part of the process was, how much would you pay for this?
Right.
Right. So you got some idea of what people were willing to pay.
Sure.
And what I can see your wheels turning there, but what I will say is it'll at least give you an idea of where people's minds are at and related to your product and related to your what you're doing and what you're offering. What we would say, and I'm sure this is what Gabe is going to say, is don't take their word as fact or gold, because sometimes what people are willing to pay for something is not what something is worth or the value of something.
Now, 1,000%. And I think, back to like the original question, it's like, how do I get paid for this? When you're in business, you want to make sure that you get comfortable asking for money immediately, because, there's this guy who runs this huge hedge fund. I forget the name of the hedge fund. His name is Ken Griffin. It's Citadel, I believe. They just moved from Chicago to Miami. He was talking about, one of his mentors was his business partner. It was also a business partner in his business. And his mentor is about to retire. And he goes, "Hey, Ken," he goes, "I'm retired." Obviously he knows he's retiring. He goes, "Is there anything in my office that you want?" And Ken's telling this story on Instagram. And he goes, "Yeah, I want that sign right behind you, that little cheap sign up there." And he said, and the sign says, "If we're all going to eat, somebody has to sell." And when you're in business, you're selling every day.
Yeah.
People aren't just going to come to you once again, unless you're changing oil and they know they need an oil change. You're going to have to sell. You're going to have to sell something. And we're selling all the time. You're selling your idea, you're selling your spouse, you're selling, why this, I want these clothes, this haircut, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You've got to get comfortable sitting in the sale. So I just want to encourage you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that's like, you just got to go for it. Like there's only one way to get good at it, and it's to start doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to feel uncomfortable. And what I found actually kind of going through my coaching program and even just talking to different people who are trying to turn coaching into a business is how many people are uncomfortable asking for money or assigning a value to a service that they provide. It's really, really common. And I would say, the more you have the conversation, but also the more you put your product out there and the more results you get for people, the more confident you are in those conversations, because the results you're going to be getting for somebody.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that, like Laura, so we have another arm of Steadyworth where has been doing some career coaching / helping people start businesses. So one thing she did was like, so she said, or maybe you want to tell the story.
Yeah. So like this year I started my coaching certification. It's a life and leadership coaching certification. So I think coaching in general from a life coaching perspective is very misunderstood, because it's not a highly regulated profession. And so anyone can label themselves a life coach, even though they don't have training for it. But that I will not go down that tangent.
Same thing as a financial coach.
Same
Anybody
thing
can
as
say, "Hey, I'm a financial coach. Yeah. I got out of, I paid off my $30,000 in debt. Let me show you how I did it."
Yeah. And so, when I started going through the classes, I was like, I had already determined in my mind that this was something that I really was passionate about. I really liked. If someone woke me up in the middle of the night and was like, "Hey, can you help me think through this thing that I'm going through and get to this outcome?" I'd be like, "Yes, let's do it." I'll hop on a call at 2 a.m. and then I'll go back to sleep at 3 a.m. No one's asked me to do that yet, thankfully. But so I actually just started reaching out on LinkedIn, and I put a couple posts out like, "Hey, I'm offering pro bono coaching for 5 people, because I want to get testimonials. I want to test out my skills, and I want to see, I just want to start coaching. So like, I'm just going to do it for free for a while." And so I ended up getting 5 people to sign up, some of which were past friends, past colleagues, someone that I did a training with at one point who I barely knew. And the thing is when I did it, I had a mixture of everyone. So like I had an old friend who was in the military, and she wanted to build a transition plan of what she was going to do after the military. I had someone who was just a full-time person. I had another person who was also full-time. And what ended up emerging is that a lot of people wanted to start their own businesses or start a passion project, like start a podcast. And I learned that that was kind of something that I was really excited about and passionate and helping people about, but I didn't know that until I started doing it. And then at the end of the agreement that I made, I was like, "Hey, I actually charge for this, and this is how it could look." And I got a few people to convert, which was great, to paid clients. So sometimes offering things for free, demonstrating a value, and then having that conversation can kind of help catapult you forward and give you a lot more clarity. So I don't know if that was what you were hitting on, but that was like the
Yeah, no,
full
I think,
story.
so
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, so let's see what else we got here. So can you start making money without quitting your job or going full time?
I think
So we
that
talked
is,
about that a little bit for you, but
yes, it depends on what field you're in. So it's like in what you're doing, So for me in finance, no, you know, maybe and in other professions, it just kind of depends on, what when you sign at your job, there are employment contracts on, what you can and can't do. So I would say check your employment contract. If you're not sure what it says, this may be a great time to consult an attorney.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of companies that have clauses in there, and it's speculative to know
sure.
how serious they are about it. Not saying that you should skirt
But
the
I think that
issues.
depending on where, I mean, imagine if you worked at Apple and
Yeah,
you're working in product development, but then you're also sideline and doing product development someplace else. I think if they find out about that, you could be in some trouble. You know what I mean? Or
right,
I knew
possibly.
this one young lady who was working at Apple and Google simultaneously, remotely. And I'm like, do they know about this? And she was like, no. And so, I'm like, I'm guessing that if that came up, like, I can guarantee you it wasn't on her LinkedIn. Like, guarantee you that. Yeah,
Right.
that
Yeah.
she wasn't holding both of those concurrently on LinkedIn. So
I
I
don't even
think
know
that
how
it's
she was doing that
good to be
nowadays.
clear on what your on what your employment contract says.
Yeah, but I mean, I think most people work full time and start a side hustle, and then once the side hustle kind of takes up ground, they'll they'll make the jump. I
Yeah.
think it just depends on your situation
Yeah,
and
I think
what
it's,
you're trying
yeah,
to
in your
achieve.
field and what your company is. Because once again, it's like, I always encourage, it's like, I feel like it's great when you get multiple things going, that when you, once again, where you're focusing in your genius zone, doing something that you're probably already passionate about and getting paid to do in your daily life. Like, of course, like if you're doing hair on the side and you work as a tax account, I doubt anybody cares. But, if you work doing taxes and then, at some place and then you start doing taxes on the side, they might care.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, it depends.
Yeah.
If you're a software engineer and then you're also building software for someone else on the side, they might care, you
Yeah.
know.
And this is, I mean, I think this is kind of goes to our philosophy around stay in your genius zone when you're doing a side hustle. But
Right.
like, like for a good period of time, I was working full time and I was coaching soccer. Both are
Right. Like,
genius zones,
yeah, totally
right?
different.
They're
Like,
just different,
yeah,
right?
now if
So if
you're
your
running a
passion is
barbecue,
to bake cakes, but you develop software during the day, I think
right.
you're
If
fine.
it's right, yeah. If you're running a barbecue stand or whatever on the weekend, probably don't care. But it
Yeah.
just depends. Check that employment contract.
Yeah, and so like, a lot of people their day job isn't necessarily their passion, right? And so I think you just have to find that line and what makes most sense to you. But I want to circle back on some of the mindset pieces to actually turning your passion into an income. And what are some blocks that common money blocks or mindset blocks that people have when it comes to charging for their gifts?
Like, I think, sometimes people just aren't comfortable asking for money.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it could be uncomfortable just sitting in the cell. It could be uncomfortable of just knowing the value that you bring and articulating that value. We were just having this conversation a long time. Like, the way that Steadyworth charges and what it looks like is a lot different than when I initially started it. Initially, I wanted it to be a standalone, like, course. It was like a DIY course that you would purchase the course, you would go through it. Maybe we would add in a little bit of coaching. And the only thing I really had to compare it to at the time, because I didn't know a lot about courses, was like I'd bought this one course. I bought two different courses. One was on like shooting guns. Another one was on, it was through the Story Brand Donald Miller thing. And he had like this suite of courses that I want to say was like 165 a year. And I mean, it came with these really in-depth courses. So I'm like, well, how much can I charge if this person's charging this? But this is just one of their products inside of a bigger ladder. And so, so then I was like stuck on, kind of like different price point. And, this is where it's great to actually have a coach or talk to somebody who's in your field or looking to see what other people in your field are charging so that, you can kind of get clear on that, so kind of saying that from, a problem that somebody might have is just like not understanding your value. I think there's also limiting beliefs that people have. And, we've been talking a lot about this on some challenges we've been running about financial limiting beliefs. And I just want to tell, just kind of reiterate one thing that we've said. We haven't said it today, but this one thing that we're constantly saying now is like, if you don't have any limiting beliefs about what you want to accomplish, your goal isn't big enough. Like I have no limiting beliefs that once I get off this call, I have dinner, I'm gonna brush my teeth. Like I know I can do that in the dark, standing on one foot, whatever, like no limiting beliefs about that. But it was like, but for my big goals, there are limiting beliefs that come in that I have to choose because they're going to come, what I'm going to do with those beliefs. Am I going to entertain them or I'm just going to say, no, I'm not going to focus on this. And when I was starting Steadyworth, I had about 6 limiting beliefs, maybe 6 to 7. I don't remember exactly how many of them there were, but there was a couple like, hey, I'm going to start this and I'm going to run out of money, or someone might not buy the product, or I don't remember what it was. I don't remember all of them. So what I did was I took flashcards, and if you've watched the show, I'm a big flashcard person at this time. I probably need to buy stock in 3M or whoever produces flashcards. So I took some flashcards and I wrote out which each limiting belief was on each flashcard. So one flashcard per limiting belief. On the back of each flashcard for that limiting belief, I started writing down the things that I was going to do to combat those limiting beliefs. So when they would come up in my mind, because they would visit me from time to time, I would pull out that flashcard. This is what I'm going to do this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on this. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah. And I think, I've been reading in this book, has nothing to do with mindset or money at all. But I was telling you this the other day, and it was talking about how, and we're going through a series actually at church right now about thoughts, and what thoughts kind of come into your brain. And I think I have 2 things. One is like, no matter what you do, you're going to have, I think that the person on average has like 6,000 thoughts a day, right? No matter who you are, 6,000 thoughts are running through your brain throughout the day. And the thing is having the right set of thoughts is never the goal. It's choosing which thoughts you're going to invest in. So you can have thoughts of, this is never going to work, or this is the greatest idea of all time in the same day, possibly back to back. And it's like, which thought are you actually going to invest time, money, and energy into? And I think, throughout life, we're inundated with so much information and so many narratives and so many stories that come from the outside of us that it's easy to pick up other people's beliefs or other people's doubts or other people's ways of thinking. And I think at the end of the day, it's like you have to choose and challenge which thoughts and which narratives you actually think are true. And a lot of people have some sort of wrong thinking about money.
Yes.
For the most part, unless you've spent a ton of time assessing your relationship with money, combating your own limiting beliefs around it. A lot of people have, it's like this sacred cow that we can't, like, we have a hard time slaying, where it's like, if you're offering some sort of value to somebody and they're achieving some sort of result or they're achieving some sort of breakthrough, that's worth money. And it's not saying anything about you or not about your own value or worth to charge that amount, right? And that's something I've had to learn. And so I'm just kind of like even iterating on that point around, being able to charge and being able to have that conversation. And what is your relationship with money and how is it impacting your hesitancy to charge?
Sure.
And what thoughts are driving that behavior?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, um, let's see here. How do you handle the fear of failure or rejection when you put your idea out there or
I mean,
ideas
well, we're in
still?
a coaching program right now, and shout out to the inner circle. And one thing that our coach has said is that when you put out content, where there's when you put something out, it could be a content, it could be product, but mainly he was talking about content at the time. But I feel like this is anything you put out. It's like either it's working for you or it's working on you. And so when you put out stuff, it's like either it's working for you and you're getting the result, or it's working on you and it's causing you to become better. It's sanding, the rough edges in you. And so it's like, off and on, I've put out YouTube videos for like the last, since October of 21. And it's like each time we do a YouTube video, each time we go live, I'm working to get better. Each product, each PDF that we've built, each, new course that we've built, we're constantly working to get better. And some of them, they do great. And some of them, they don't take off as fast as what we would like. And so I think the thing is that you just have to be committed on the journey. And that's one thing that I've been committed. Like, now I'm at the point when I drop a YouTube video, I don't go back and look and go, oh, did this many people watch it? Or did I get that many likes? Or an Instagram post? I'm like, I'm not right at this point. I'm just committed to the journey. I have
Yeah.
what I need to do. I do what I need to do, and then I go focus on something else, which is,
Yeah.
getting on the next video, getting on the next course, getting on the next challenge, getting on the next, how can I be better at serving my clients? Because, and then, because the thing is, as you constantly get better, things will just work better. And I think that, every time when we're on the journey, when we're on the road, I think, when you're on, opportunity and preparation meet at an intersection. And and you have to keep traveling down the preparation path, and soon you will intersect with opportunity. And I can't tell you when that is, and I wish I knew all of the times when it was going to happen in my life too. But you want to be, as long as you keep down preparation path, opportunity intersection, you will cross with that street. And when you get there, you want to be able to knock it out the park. And so that's
Yeah.
the thing that I'm constantly thinking about, is every day is a prep day for me. I'm constantly preparing so that when I run across opportunity, I'm ready to capitalize. And I would encourage somebody who's looking to start a business, to monetize. That's what you want to do. How can you sharpen your saw every day? Take every rehearsal as a dress rehearsal. This isn't just a rehearsal. This is live. This is the live thing every day.
Yeah, and so it sounds like, not focusing so much on the rejection or the fear of failure and more on the journey and the process and the opportunities that are to come.
Right. Absolutely. Because the thing is that about when you're in business and when you in life, think about it like this way: you don't need 100 yeses, 1,000 yeses. You need one good yes. Like, I mean, we're married. I only need one wife. Like, like so what does it matter that I've talked to a bunch of other people and it didn't work out? I only need one
Right.
good yes.
Yeah.
I have Steadyworth. I only need one good business idea. I don't
Yeah.
need 30 other business ideas. And
Yeah.
it's like, in getting one client, one great contract can be better than 10 small little contracts. And that's
One
what
of
I
my
found. It's like, huh?
No, go ahead, finish.
Yeah. So it's just like, I don't, so it's just a natural part of the process. You're going to get a bunch of no's, but you only need a couple good yeses.
Well, and one of my favorite analogies recently, and I heard this on Instagram, but when I wasn't a big tennis person before we started dating and we started watching tennis, and I remember listening to Roger Federer talk about how you don't need to win every point. You just need to win the game. Like, and
That's
so it's
right.
like some of the best tennis players in the world lose points. Like, and they have to come back and they have to respond and they have to change their approach or they have to do something different. And so I love that because tennis makes it, I feel like that game in particular makes mistakes small in the grand scheme of the whole game, right? Because there's points, there's sets, and you can lose a set and win the game. Like you can lose a point and win the game still. And so
Yeah.
I like thinking about, I like likening business to the game of tennis just because not every point is going to be a winning point. Not every shot's going to be a winning shot, but it's what you do after. I had a friend who used to always say that it's not about what you did, it's about what you do after what you did. right?
Yep.
And she worked in she was a parole officer, so she, you know, she was always constantly helping people kind of rebound from mistakes. But it's the same with failure. It's the same with you know, putting your idea out there. It's like, it's not about what happened, it's about what you do after what happened.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that, when if you're getting in business, you need to be comfortable with rejection, comfortable with having people shut your idea down, and, and keep going for it. I mean, I still can never get over the story that I heard about Jeff Bezos, that, when he was starting back in the back in the 90s. I mean, people were throwing money at tech startups. I mean, millions and millions of dollars, and he couldn't get anyone to give him $1 million for Amazon. So finally, he started going. I would like to ask, I don't know how long it took, but he had to go to 20 different people to get them to commit $50,000 to his Amazon project. 20 people. So, I mean, and one thing I can tell you about business, I can guarantee you, I'd be willing to bet that the first 20 people he went to did not say yes. So I don't know how many people he went to
Right.
get how many it took to finally get the 20 who would commit to
Yeah.
the yes, but he decided to stay on it. Look at where Amazon is now.
A
You know,
lot of regret. People are regretting a lot of
yeah. Like, could you imagine? You don't want to give Jeff Bezos, like, could you imagine looking back and be like, yeah, I told that kid no.
yeah.
Yeah, biggest mistake of my life ever. Like,
Totally, totally. Yeah. And so I think, you know, even, you know, in a lot of ways, like rejection proves how committed you are to your idea.
yeah.
Because and how much value you personally believe. And I think anyone who's starting a business goes through that, whether it's a 6-month period or a 2-year period or a 3-year or a 5-year period. Like, it always keeps you humble to
Yeah.
be rejected but it also can dig you in even further, right? And so I think in a lot of ways we're talking a lot about how to find your passion, the mindset blocks, starting a business, starting a side hustle. But what is like a practical step that someone could take to turn their passion into income?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing to do, it would be like figuring out what problem that you're going to solve for someone. I think that would be, like, because when we're talking about people pay to have problems solved. And so just on a very small level, it's like, what problem is it solving for someone? And so,
Right.
for when I was thinking about starting Steadyworth, and I've learned a lot since I've started, but initially I was like, okay, with the way the financial landscape is currently set up, in order to get in front of a CFP, you generally have to go to what they call a registered investment advisory. With the way that these registered investment advisories are set up, most financial advisors want to talk to people who have a lot of money because they get paid based off of managing their money. And what I mean by that is, like at the firm I was at, you had to have a minimum of $1 million to become a new client, and they would charge one basis on that million, which one basis point. So that would equal out to $10,000 per million up to the first 3 million. So if you have 3 million, they would be charging $30,000, 2 million, $20,000, 1 million, 10,000. Then after 3 million, they would bring it down to maybe 0.75 or something like that for like 4, 5, 6, and they would keep going. So you get what I mean? So like they're making a lot of money. So the field is set up that way. Majority of financial advisors charge that way. My thought was, what about people who need help but don't have $10,000 a year to spend? How can they get in front of a CFP? How can they learn what they need? Not trying to replace what the RIA is doing, but how can we start equipping a generation sooner so that they can start, maybe not going through the school of hard knocks, get the information they need, and then be able to accumulate more wealth and then be able to afford these fees. And so that was the problem that I was trying to solve. I think you want to connect the problem that you have, that your product or your passion, to a problem that's, that is happening in an industry, and then you can start getting it out there.
So it's not to build a website and start an LLC.
Yeah. So the worst thing that I saw, like the other day I was on YouTube, and I think this was just yesterday or Friday, and I literally wish, and I clicked off of the commercial, but literally the next time I see it, I'm going to replay it and then do a screen share so I could bring it up. But it was like it was the thing you don't want to do. And it was like, are you ready to start taking your bit? Is literally a guy looking at the thing, and he was like reading it. He's like, are you ready to start taking your business serious? This needs to be the year that you start your LLC. I want you to go to XYZ, whatever it is.com, and go start your LLC. So now you can be a real business. Like, no, you starting an LLC is just signing up for another bill. It's not going to help you with your taxes. It's not going to do anything. What only thing that it will do for you is that if somebody's trying to sue you, it basically brings a legal veil between you as the individual and your company. But once again, who are they going to sue if you don't have no product? You just started an LLC. I know people who started LLCs, and the thing about having an LLC, you have to have it set up correctly and have your finances different with the business bank account, this and that. I know people who started LLCs. They go get a business address to run it to. Then all of a sudden they're not running a product or having money going to it, and then they're paying fees on the LLC. In California, I know this one person was doing this $800 a year for that LLC fee, and it wasn't doing any money. So they're negative on that. Then I know someone else who signed up for a fictitious business address, got locked into a 2-year contract, is $2,000 a year for it. They didn't even need the fictitious business, and also that they didn't renew the LLC. So the LLC, is defunct. Figure out how you're going to solve some problems. Figure out how you're going to get some money from someone else into your pocket. And then we can get the legal structure set up.
Yeah, I think the other thing too people think about, and I've talked about this a lot with excuse me, some of my clients, is I need to get a website going. I need to pull this up. And I think we sort of fell into this. I mean, I'm happy with our website. I love our website, but I think it wasn't necessarily the first thing we had to do. Like, it really was like, what is our product? What are we trying to solve? And how are we going to exchange it for money? Right.
Yeah.
And I would say focus on that and get really crisp and clear on that. Get comfortable asking people for money. I'm not saying you shouldn't set up some sort of structure, right?
Right.
But that should be when you're ready to start really going for it, not just to get a tax advantage or do this, because there's all sorts of stuff on Instagram talking about that. I see that stuff all the time. It's like, just do this, just do that, and save on taxes. And it's like, you're missing a lot of information there.
Yeah. So I'd say, get clear on what it is that you want to offer. Figure out, get a way to receive payment, whether it's a Stripe account, some sort of thing, a landing page, or ways that people can pay you, and start working on getting paid. And, and yeah, that would be the best thing, the best way to get started.
So what's one myth about doing what you love that you'd like to bust?
Yeah, there's these things that used to be on Instagram or Facebook, or I don't remember. They're old, and it was like what, and they had different ones. It was like what my mom thinks I do, what my kids think I do, or whatever, versus what I actually do. So I remember seeing this one for a pastor. It's like, or entrepreneurs, like what they think I do versus what I actually do. And I think that, a lot of times people think that, oh, when I'm an entrepreneur or when I run my own business, I get to design my own day. I get to do whatever it is I want to do. I'm gonna be working on the beach. I get to do this. I get to do that. Part of that is true, and part of it's not. One thing I will say is, working as an entrepreneur, I work harder than I ever worked for anyone else. I mean, it's Sundays. We're doing Sundays with Steadyworth. And this is how you're passionate about it, because I don't really work on Sundays, but I don't feel like this has really worked to me. I love doing this. And so when you step into being entrepreneurship, I have the saying that I've been saying ever since we started. This is like, every night can be Friday night. You can do whatever you want to do. Every night can be what you would consider the beginning of a weekend. But every morning is Monday morning. It's never Wednesday morning. It's never hump day. It's not Thursday morning. It's not Saturday morning. You're responsible. You're on the ball. Every morning is a fresh start. It's Monday morning. And so, so you have to take that mindset to it, because when you're starting a business, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And a lot of times it takes you putting in a lot more into it before you start getting even just a little bit out of it. And so just want to say that it's like, yes, you will have the flexibility, but it's all on you. Everything is on you. Marketing, selling, product production, delivering to clients, everything is on you. And so I just wanted to say, it's like, so there's a lot of great things, but back to tennis, using another tennis analogy, there's a tennis champion, Billie Jean King, and she has, and at her stadium in New York, where they do the US Open, she has a plaque, and it says, "Pressure is a privilege. You will be under pressure, and you have to see the pressure you're dealing with as a privilege."
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. It's definitely the biggest personal growth journey I've ever been on. Okay, so last question, and then we'll take questions for those of us who are here. So if you have any questions about anything at any point, just drop it in the comment section, and we'll answer it. But how has turning your passion into income changed your life?
I think, the biggest thing is that I'm just a different person. I've been on this journey, and it's kind of like one of those things. It's like you can't become the person until you go down the journey. You can't, you know, it's just like when I think of myself back in 2019, 2020, as I was thinking about how I wanted to start the business, what I wanted it to do, how I wanted to do it. And then, getting to actually next week is August. I quit my job to go full time on this. It was August 3rd, 20 or to August 2nd or August 3rd, one of those days. I have to go back and check 2021. So, I quit this 4 years ago, literally to the week almost.
That's
And
wild.
so,
Where is the
it's
time
it's
gone?
just it's different, so I just became a different person. You definitely have, you have to have that self-starter in you, and so it's just because every day it's up to you. Nobody's gonna say, hey, get up, it's time to work on your business activity, or if you don't get to the job, they're gonna fire you if you're not there on time. You're doing that thing. And so I just feel like, the biggest thing for me has just been the transformation of, I mean, I think back to the old person I'm like, I'm just not that person anymore. I'm just a
Yeah.
different person. And
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to articulate that until you've gone down the journey, and then you're like, yo, I'm just not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I resonate with that as well. I think, I was working full time still when all that happened in 2021, but then got laid off in 2023. And I mean, so much has changed over the last like 4 or 5 years since COVID, but I definitely think being kind of going for it, like really going for your passion and trying to turn your passion into income. I don't know that there's a more rewarding experience.
I agree. And so if I had to, I was thinking about, like, how people say, parenting changes you in ways. And it's like, but if you're not a parent, you don't get it, and
Hard
I'm
to
not a
know.
parent, so I don't know. So it's like, because they say, well, you're not that selfish, or you're this or you're that. So I want to say, I feel like when I think about how business can change you is one, it makes you get super clear on your priorities, because when you're pushing a business forward, everything has to be moving in your life towards that direction.
Yeah.
You're pushing that thing forward, because there is no like, oh, hey, if this doesn't work out, then I'm gonna go do this. It's like, no, everything, every day, every week, every month is pushing towards that thing.
Yeah.
So you get really clear on that. There's sacrifices to be made. I mean, there's times where it's like, hey, you missed somebody's wedding, somebody's birthday, you missed going to this reunion, this
Yeah.
party, this funeral, because everything is going in one direction. And it's like, and I don't have, sometimes when you're first getting going, you don't have as much flexibility as you may have. There is no, oh, this is a PTO. Like, hey, I just called my job and I'm like, yo, I need PTO, or I need bereavement time. Like, you don't get any of that, and
Yeah.
so it's you're figuring out how to manage all of it. And like Laura said, it is the most rewarding. It's great. I love doing it every day. I look forward to Monday. I'm looking forward to Sunday. I look forward
We
to it
do not
all. But it's
we
just
don't have what they call the Sunday scaries.
right. Yeah. Like, I don't think, oh man, it's Sunday. And I've definitely felt that before. Like, I don't, back when I used to work, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to go and deal with this tomorrow. But, but there are challenges. And so you wear multiple hats, like you've heard other people say, but it's a great thing. But, it's not for the faint of heart. It's an
Yeah.
endurance sport.
Yeah. But it does give you, I think it a level of fulfillment that you can't reach unless you take full ownership of something. I
Yes.
think that's why people say that about, having kids is like that kid, you have full ownership over that kid,
Right.
like it's your responsibility. I mean, I think in the same ways, like having a business or turning your passion into an income, it's a product, it's a reflection of you, and so the more you grow and the better you become, the better your business becomes. And so I think for people who are really interested in making the most out of life and really going for it, and not feeling like they have any regrets, it's worth doing.
Absolutely.
So I don't see any questions yet.
Okay, well, I have one that I was gonna just share and curate of one that we have here. It says, should you build your audience first or start selling right away? And I feel like this was something that I was trying to figure out, when I was going, it's like, I had like a little email list. I had, a landing page for people to sign up. And one thing that I've learned now that I would have done differently is that I'd already run this test group. I had the product, but I was working on actually getting the product, getting everything filmed, and I was filming everything myself, editing everything myself, and I'm learning all these new skills all at once. And I think that, I would say when you're building I would say build your product, and I would say sell and build your audience and your product all at the same time. Bring them on the journey with you. Share about that. And so it's like, one thing that I brought on the journey with me is that it's like, I've been learning a lot about cryptocurrency in the last 5-6 months. And so, I've been, bringing to my audience, different people I talk to, clients. We've done one on Bitcoin on this show. I've been bringing people on the journey. I'm like, I don't need to learn everything about Bitcoin and about cryptocurrency and about blockchain before I start speaking about it. So I feel like, when you're running your business, you're building the thing and you're figuring out what you want to do. I think, after you have a clear idea and the direction you're going, start going that direction, start building your audience and bring them along with you, and start selling as immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do both.
Yeah. Another question we have here is, do I need to be an expert, or can I just be 1 to 2 steps ahead? And I would say for that one, it depends on who you want to help, because people pay for expert help, but people will pay to, have somebody just help them with something. But it depends on who your target market is, because if you're not going expert level, you will get to a point where maybe somebody who you're trying to help will lap you on what it is that they're doing. And so, so I want to say that you constantly, you want to be growing and investing. And that's why it's kind of like one of those things is this a passion or is this a hobby? Like, I could help get somebody set up with barbecue, but somebody could quickly lap me in barbecue because I'm just not here studying it. Whereas I'm on my finance thing.
Yeah.
I'm deep into it.
Well, and to your point, I think your motivation and your goal is really important. But I think people don't start because they think they need to be a 100% expert to help somebody. But I
Right.
remember talking to a friend of mine who's also a life and leadership coach, and she's like, really, you only need to be like 1 or 2 steps ahead of your client. And as long as you stay 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, you're good.
Right. And I think, and growing. So, I mean, I think the key point is 1 or 2
Yeah.
steps ahead and growing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the point that I'm making is you can't really be 1 or 2 steps ahead if
Right.
you're not growing. Like, if you're not
Right.
investing in your own process or doing your own thing, then you're probably not going to be 1 or 2 steps ahead
Right.
at one point, because they're going to be putting in more work than you are.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
it makes me think of, at one point when we were living in California, I was going to, this one guy to get cut, Marcus, and he was cutting me. And then at one point I sit down in the chair and he says, he goes, what do you want this week? And he goes, same thing as last time. And then he started saying, same thing as last time, but a little bit better. And then I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I should be giving it to you a little bit better. He goes, I should be cutting your hair a little bit better because I need to improve in the last 2 weeks. Right. And I'm like, that's right. Same thing but last time, but a little bit better, because you should have gotten better in the last 2 weeks since I saw you. And so that's what, when you're working, you want to be same thing as last time and a little bit better, because you're improving every couple of weeks.
Well, and that's the idea of developing mastery. Like ultimately the goal when you turn a passion into income is you have some level of mastery over it, and you continue to develop that mastery, because everything in the world is changing all the time. And how are you getting better? But I think, a lot of people don't start because they feel like they need to be like eons ahead of people, when really, and even in a coaching engagement, like specifically for life and leadership coach, like I actually don't need to be an expert in every problem that someone has. That's not my job as a coach. Like, as a finance coach, I think there is some expertise there, but ultimately you're facilitating someone coming to their own conclusion and committing to their own process about what they want to do with their money. And you're bringing a level of expertise to that. In like a life and leadership coaching situation, like I'm not an expert at that person's life. I'm not an expert at that person's, leadership kerfuffle or whatever they're going through. My job is to facilitate a process for them to get clear on what it is they actually want to do and be committed to that process. So I don't have to be an expert in everything. So I think it obviously depends on your lane and what your passion is. I wouldn't say the same thing about soccer. Like there is a level of expertise you need to have in order to be a coach, because it's a different type of coach.
Right.
Like if I'm coaching 11-year-olds on how to play soccer, a lot of them don't know how to play soccer the right way because they're not there
Right.
yet. They are not at that level of mastery. But I think a lot of people that we work with, they are the masters of their own life. So
Absolutely.
how can we be the masters of our craft and get them to a place where they feel comfortable and confident in what they're doing? So,
Yes. So with that, we're going to start winding on down. So I just wanted to say that, we have been checking our YouTube analytics, and it has come to our attention that only 80% of the people who watch our content or 80% of people who watch our content are not subscribed. And so if you watch this, we appreciate you liking the video. If you've gotten some value out of this, telling us, in the comments below, let us know what your passion is. What is the thing that you're looking to monetize? And we would love for you to subscribe to the channel so that you could be notified, when we have new content coming out. We actually usually post a video during the week. We've been posting very consistently, and of course we've been doing Sundays with Steadyworth. Please, we would love to have you come here, join us live, ask some questions. If you have an idea for a topic you would like us to cover in the future, put it down there. Also, we have a link that we post down in the description that if you'd like to hop on and just have a complimentary call with us to work through a topic or see what it would be like to become a client at Steadyworth, we would love to have a call with you and just talk through some things, talk shop with finance. Also, we love meeting new people and
we
connecting.
do.
So feel free. So drop us a line. And I think that's everything for today's episode. So
That's everything.
have a great week.
Yes.
Next time we see you, it will be the beginning of August. Next Sunday will be, I think we're already be August. It's August 1st on Saturday, I believe.
3rd, I think.
It'll
be August 3rd.
Yeah. So I was going to say, yeah, no, okay. So Friday's August 1st. So yeah, we were already be in August. And so next Sunday will be August 3rd. We're looking forward to connecting. Have a great day.
Yes. Talk soon.